headlines this Monday night. It's the very latest ITV News.
Bad tidings on the economy for Labour, flatlining growth and a warning from business leaders for 2025. Revised figures show zero growth for the first 3 months of the new government, the hospitality sector in particular performing worse than expected.
I can't afford to just look around and give somebody else that job. It's just going down to myself and as just being a little bit more short-staffed.
With inflation rising, the CBI is warning the economy is heading for the worst of all worlds in the new year. So how will the government respond? Also this evening, why the King has chosen a chapel, not a palace, for his Christmas message this year. And farewell to an Aussie legend. The Crocodile star of Croc Dundee has died at the age of 90.
This is the ITV Evening News with Julie Etchingham.
Good evening. For a new government which made boosting economic growth its top priority, there was gloomy reading today. Revised figures for July to September showed there was zero growth in Labour's first 3 months in Downing Street. And as for next year, grim predictions there too. The CBI, which represents tens of thousands of businesses across the country, says we're heading for the worst of all worlds. In response, the Prime Minister said economic prosperity won't happen overnight and declined to rule out further tax rises. We'll have more on that in a moment. But first, Ben Chapman reports from Lichfield.
In Lichfield city centre, shoppers were queuing up for those last-minute Christmas essentials. But ask them and businesses about the economy in 2025, and there's little hope for a happy new year.
You're a little bit more, we would say, fiffy. It's an expression, it just means you have to be a little bit more wiser in what you spend and how you spend.
Do you see that changing in the new year?
No, absolutely not. It's going to get worse.
It will impact things like probably less socialising and, less of the nice stuff like going out for meals.
There was nothing in today's latest figures to lift the gloom. The Office for National Statistics had estimated the economy grew by 0.1% between July and September. But it's revised that figure down to zero, meaning it didn't grow at all in the first few months of the Labour government. It was partly because fewer people were eating and drinking out. For this cafe, increases in the minimum wage and national insurance announced in the budget will push their prices up again. And Samantha has decided not to replace a member of staff who's leaving.
It's been quite a difficult decision to decide. I can't afford to replace her. So I can't afford to just look around and give somebody else that job. It's just being a little bit more short-staffed.
She's not alone, warns the business group the CBI, which says higher prices and fewer new jobs are the worst of all worlds. Labour had made growth its top priority.
We've only just got started. Labour's been in government now for a couple of months, but we have very significant plans going into 2025 and the years ahead to bring that stability and investment and reform to the British economy, which will stimulate growth in the years ahead.
But the Conservatives say the warning lights are flashing on the economy. The CBI predicts all industries will see decline early next year. Retailers expect shoppers to go on a spending freeze once the Christmas splurge is over. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Lichfield.
Well, our political correspondent Shihab Khan is here to talk further about this. At the end of the year, this is not the news the government wanted, is it?
No, not at all, especially given that we just recently had inflation figures that the government wasn't expecting, which saw inflation go up. As you heard in Ben's report there, the CBI, one of the leading business groups in the UK, is talking about a steep decline of business activity in the first quarter of the next year, which again is not good news for a government which has put so much emphasis on improving living standards for people up and down the country. And a lot of that will come down to the economy growing and having better economic circumstances all round. The government's position at the moment is they inherited an economy that wasn't functioning in the way it should have been from the previous government. They say that they've had to take some difficult decisions. This was inevitable to stabilise the economy, and they're confident come next year the economy will do better. The Conservatives completely disagree. They are pointing to figures and saying that the economy was growing in their last few months in office. They are blaming that budget we saw from Rachel Reeves in October. Ultimately, inflation stats going up, growth flatlining, and now this CBI warning, all of it together is not the message the government would have wanted to receive towards the end of the year.
OK, Shihab, thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you. For the first time since 2006, the royal Christmas message has been recorded away from the royal residences. Instead, this year it will come from a former hospital chapel in recognition of the royal family's year battling cancer. The King's address was filmed at Fitzrovia Chapel on the site of the old Middlesex Hospital in central London. Here's our royal editor, Chris Shipp.
Surrounded by new apartments, you could quite easily miss Fitzrovia Chapel, tucked away in a busy part of central London. Inside, however, no one could fail to be impressed, just as the King was earlier this month, by the marble and gold leaf ceiling with more than 500 stars. It was here that King Charles stood to record this year's Christmas broadcast, an unusual location away from the traditional royal residence. Instead, a former hospital chapel, deliberately chosen to reflect a year of health challenges for both him and the Princess of Wales.
He was pretty surprised and kind of delighted from coming in, discovering it. With the particular year that the family have had, the chapel's connection to the hospital and to the wider kind of healthcare profession, the medical profession, is what made it the choice for them.
The old hospital was demolished, leaving the chapel standing on its own, but it retains a link with the new hospital, the one the King visited in April when he restarted public engagements and met fellow cancer patients. So on Christmas Day, his speech is likely to reference his own cancer journey and Kate's. The princess has finished her chemotherapy and is returning to royal engagements.
For many years, this tiny chapel just moments from Oxford Street was a place of prayer and contemplation for medics and patients from the hospital which stood next door. The King wanted this year's Christmas message to be away from a palace.
This location and the King's thoughts on communities which came together following the summer riots are expected to feature in the speech. Everything else is under wraps until Christmas Day. Chris Shipp, ITV News, Fitzrovia Chapel.
Luigi Mangione, the man accused of fatally shooting health insurance executive Brian Thompson, has pleaded not guilty to murder and terror charges. The 26-year-old was escorted to New York State Criminal Courthouse in Manhattan with an officer on either arm. Mangione faces a maximum sentence of life if convicted. The supermarket giant Morrison's has had to apologise after system issues mean some Christmas food orders have been cancelled and customers with loyalty cards overcharged. Morrison's say they'll offer discounts today and tomorrow too. But could the delays impact Christmas dinners? Well, Martha Fairley is outside a store for us in London, North London tonight. Martha, how did this happen?
Well, first this morning, the Morrison's More Card loyalty scheme wasn't applying special discounts at the tills. Then Click and Collect customers reported they weren't receiving emails saying their shopping was ready to pick up, leaving them wondering if they'd have anything to eat on Christmas Day. And as if that wasn't bad enough, on the day before Christmas Eve, customers who were waiting for their online order to be delivered received a message, some of them saying it had been cancelled. It's affected Moira Redhead in Northumberland. She relies on the delivery service because of mobility issues, and she says she feels Morrison's had cancelled her Christmas.
I'm angry, really. I mean, they've done this, but they should be, I know I'm not the only person, and they should be reinstating people's deliveries. You know, and I managed to get on their website again before because their website had crashed, but everything on it says it's not available. So you can't actually get anything.
Well, Morrisons have since delivered a turkey, flowers and chocolates to Moira. They say a system issue was to blame and that they, as an apology, will give all Morecard customers a 10% discount today and tomorrow. They haven't explained why some orders have been cancelled, leaving customers with a bad taste in their mouths and nothing to serve up on Christmas Day.
Martha, thank you. A British activist jailed in Egypt says he's hurt Sir Keir Starmer didn't bring up his case at the recent G20 summit in Brazil. Alaa Abd El Fattah has dual nationality and was imprisoned 5 years ago for publicly criticising Egypt's government. He completed a 5-year sentence in September but remains in prison. His sister says she's disappointed at the way he's been treated. Downing Street says the Prime Minister will raise the case next time he speaks to the Egyptian president. And the Royal College of Emergency Medicine is warning parents about expanding water beads. They're sold as toys, stress balls or home decor. Doctors say they've been linked to child deaths abroad. The beads can grow to 400 times their size, posing a danger to children. And finally, farewell to the world's most famous crocodile. Bert starred in the hit 1980s film Crocodile Dundee. While the character he played in the cult classic had a short life, he lived to 90. That's 20 years longer than the life expectancy of your average saltwater croc. But, as Olivia Guthrie explains, there was nothing average about Bert.
He was one of the world's most famous crocodiles, meeting his end on screen when Mick came to Sue's rescue in the outback in the hit 1986 Christmas classic Crocodile Dundee. Bert made his big screen debut alongside a model Bert, mimicking his movements in this scene with Paul Hogan and Linda Kozlowski. The 110-stone renowned reptile then retired to Crocosaurus Cove in Darwin. The zoo say he passed away peacefully over the weekend, having had something of a good innings. Estimated to be more than 90, he was a full 2 decades older than the normal life expectancy of a saltwater croc. Bert had a brief career as a psychic in recent years, but after predicting Australia would beat France in their World Cup clash in 2018, they lost 2-1. And making a snap judgment, which was ultimately wrong, in an election prediction the following year, his reptilian reliability was called into question. Having starred in Australia's highest-grossing film of all time, it's perhaps not surprising Bert was something of a diva. His keepers say his personality could be challenging, and despite efforts to breed from him, they say he remained a confirmed bachelor with one hell of a grumpy attitude. Olivia Guthrie, ITV News.
Fancy that. That's it for now. I'm back with the latest at 10 o'clock tonight. Have a lovely evening. See you later.